Ukraine, the five. As our current president lets bombers, traitors, and crack dealers out of jail, it's President-elect Trump we should fear. Right, Carol?
A lot of people in the country right now are scared. They're anxiety-ridden. They want to hear something from him that says to them that, you know what, it's going to be okay. Instead, we're just hearing from the combative Donald Trump.
And I understand that the feeling is that the president-elect himself is fueling this because he continues to be adversarial on issues that he's concerned with. But at the same time,
he's entrenching Americans in their camp.
Oh, my God. She's the only Costello less serious than Lou. Now, I get it. Trump sounds mean and Obama's so soothing. He's like a cup of chamomile tea that drones people.
We have traveled the world together. We've hit a few singles, a few doubles together. I've offered advice that I thought was pretty sound, like don't do stupid stuff. And even when you complained about my long answers, I just want you to know that the only reason they were long was because you asked six-part questions.
Now, to that Dr. Jekyll, Trump is Mr. Hyde. He's loud, impulsive, orange, a pissed-off creamsicle. The media says he's dividing America. Yet few minded when Hillary called half of America irredeemable. Republicans are always demonized. Now, for once, we demonized back. Here's joyless Behar from the knitting circle in hell.
So let's talk about what's going on right now, because the inauguration of a certain person is happening on January 20th.
Who shall not be named.
That's right. It's happening on January 20th, and there are millions of people who did not vote for him and who feel frightened. I run into people all the time. Joy, keep talking. We're scared. We don't know what to do.
No one says keep talking to Joy. Oh, the good old days when only liberals scared us. The Weather Underground, the Black Panthers, FALN. The FALN killed many. They maimed cops. They terrorized cities. And now President Obama just releases one. And you thought Bill Ayers was just a fluke. The lesson, when the left kills, it's romantic. A Republican is rude, now that's evil. And so as young leftists threaten campus security to a point where right-wing events are canceled and anti-Trump leftists plan to attack inaugural events, the media keeps saying, people, beware of Trump. Perhaps projecting panic masks their bias. What the media does to Trump is what they did to cops. Say the police are really harmful, then later ask why people are so scared of the police. And so they treat a Trump White House like a zombie apocalypse, hoping the mentality spreads. But one thing is clear, judging from that last presser, the press adores President Obama. They still do. Yet they fear Trump. Change is good. All right, Eric, let's be honest here. That was a pretty boring press release.
Snooze.
It was a total.
I mean, there were some interesting points on Chelsea Manning, on voting. He called voter fraud fake news. There was some good stuff in there, but look, I actually felt bad for him when he walked. It was a long press conference. Yeah. He made sure he's got Fox. He got everyone on cable news. Then he went to Univision. Then he went to the LGBTQ TV, which I didn't even know there was one, but there is one. But on the way out, can you imagine? You're the most powerful human being on the planet for 8 years and in 48 hours. You're just one of us, Mr. President. That's got to be a tall order. Look, he didn't really make any news. I mean, he was asked about, whatever it is now, 66 Democrats that are going to boycott the inauguration. He ducked that one as well. Mm-hmm. I think he was just there to say a final goodbye.
Yeah. You know, Meghan, the media loves him. I think it's because he's so much like them. Like, he's a co-worker, but Trump is a boss.
Well, I gain all my strength by drinking the tears of liberals. So I love that everyone is having so much anxiety. Mm-hmm. I love that Joy Behar can't seem to get through a segment without saying our next president's name. Now you know what it feels like to be me for the past 8 years. Mm-hmm. Now you know what it feels like when I woke up and realized that the Iran deal was going through. I love it. This is time of change. It's a time of change, and I'm glad that so many people are finally feeling what it was like to be a conservative for the past 8 years.
Mm-hmm. Lisa, I want to play a SOT. That's sound on tape for America. This is President Obama talking about the press's role.
But I have enjoyed working with all of you. That does not, of course, mean that I've enjoyed every story that you have filed, but that's the point of this relationship. You're not supposed to be sycophants. You're supposed to be skeptics. You're supposed to ask me tough questions. You're not supposed to be complimentary, but you're supposed to cast a critical eye on folks who hold enormous power and make sure that we are accountable to the people who sent us here.
In the middle of that, I regretted throwing to that because I forgot how boring it is.
I know, I fell asleep, so I need to wait.
But there was a point to be made there about how the press held him accountable.
Which is a complete joke, because I think President Obama has probably received more leniency from the media than any other president that had preceded him. But look, here's the big problem. I think right now we're seeing such an erosion of trust from Americans in various institutions, particularly the media. If you look at Gallup, most recent poll, the trust in media is at an all-time low. And it's really counterproductive for people in the media to drive just this sensationalized headlines or BuzzFeed and CNN running information about the unsubstantiated dossier because it just feeds that distrust in the media. And then when the media actually tries to hold Donald Trump accountable on things that maybe he should be held accountable on, nobody's going to believe them. And so it's incredibly counterproductive for them to continue this sort of mass hysteria.
Juan, there's you see the media talking about how scary it is. There's frightening children. Yep. They're frightening children about what's going to happen with President Trump as Obama frees a bomber, an FLN terrorist. That's kind of scary to me, right?
I think I'd look at the specifics of the case. I don't think it's that scary, but
100 bombings.
But I must say, I thought that the comment that you just made, that the press was so easy on Obama. I think we're sitting here at Fox News. I mean, Fox News has been absolutely tough on Obama.
If you look at the majority of the media, though, that's not the case.
Well,
I don't think has been objective and treated them fairly.
Whatever you want to say, about our coverage, but I would say that the press has not exactly been a lapdog, as has been described here for Obama.
Rest of the press, Juan.
I don't. No. I said
the rest. The press conference?
press in general. I watched and you know what I took away?
There's tears coming from the reporters.
There were several reporters there who did, as you said, seem like they were emotionally attached. Or the chill up the leg. Who
like
was
a
that?
Chris
Matthews, the tingle or something.
But I thought that
could have been incontinent.
I thought that President Obama was directly speaking to President-elect Trump about the press. And don't forget that just today, President-elect Trump said, we're going to have the press corps in the White House. And that had been put out there. Sean Spicer, our old friend, had said maybe they would move them out to the old executive office building, the Eisenhower building. President Obama said it holds us accountable to have you guys here, that there's an important role. And apparently, I don't know if he put some direct pressure on or spoke to President-elect Trump about it, but apparently that decision got reversed.
Well, but the criticism that President Obama has received, he can't even take, because he has blamed Fox News, he's blamed conservative radio for painting him in this negative light, and that's why, people didn't like him, or that's why some of his policies were perceived as failures to voters. So the little criticism he did receive throughout his presidency, he couldn't even handle. And don't you think that if President Obama was treated to the same degree that President Trump, or soon-to-be President Trump, was treated by the media, it might be different circumstances as well? Because you look at the coverage that Donald Trump received in the general election, 91% of it was negative.
I believe that Donald Trump's a very different person. I think Greg pointed this out, that if you listen to President Obama, even at the risk of getting bored, he's not dropping bombs every minute, and he's not attacking people, and he's not tweeting out attacks on people every minute.
He's just letting Gitmo details.
Well, that's okay. But Meghan, I hear you, but I hope you heard me.
Lessening the influence of Israel, and he's
I bet I can't.
He has made us. What's fascinating about him is in the last few days, it's like he's going down a checklist. I said this earlier on Outnumbered. Like he's trying to make America as least safe as possible internationally on his way out, and he's going to have to live with the legacy. And if he were so successful, and the press, I do believe, I agree with you, did him a favor, and anyone who spent any time around reporters know how much they loved him off the record when they're drinking, and I certainly know that. But he, on his way out, you don't usher in the era of Trump if you haven't been an abysmal failure. It's such a pendulum swing. On the other side of the right, you're not just talking about a conservative, you're talking about a populist movement that made its way to the White House. If you were so good at these policies, Hillary Clinton would be president.
Well, I disagree. I think, in fact, it's the fact that he's so cool that people want someone that they think is anti-PC and direct.
He's so boring, Eric, that he can sneak stuff by Americans.
Now, no, he can sneak. Here's what. Look, so we've done stories about 90% of the press donations have gone to Democrats. The press is wildly leaning liberal. They lean left. We know that's the case. Now what you have in that press briefing room is 90% of the people in that room are going, what are we going to do now?
Yeah.
He's leaving. What's this good? Oh, please help us. Help us figure out what we're going to do with President-elect Donald. Yeah. When President Donald Trump is giving the briefing, they're freaking out. They're begging for Obama to help help figure out what the next 4 or 8 years is going to look like. It's going to be, the pendulum is going to swing exactly the other way, where you guys are going to be seen as the hostile press to President Donald Trump, much the same way that President Obama saw Fox News as hostile to him.
Did they even ask about the FALN free terrorists? I kind of tuned out, so it might be my fault, but I don't think that ever came up. But that's kind of weird. If I'm wrong, let me know. I'm sure they will.
You'll hear soon enough.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that they don't want him to go.
No, they don't.
They don't want him to go.
No, I'm sure.
They're a dry eye.
Let me just tell you, as someone who's been a Washington reporter, the press corps has a lot of trouble with Obama in terms of pursuing leaks, going after people, prosecuting them.
FOIA requests, for sure.
Historical high in terms of that kind of treatment of reporters. But when you hear the prospect, we know the reality of Donald Trump during the campaign saying, I don't want, I'm taking away the credentials for the Washington Post. Or I'm going to I have the crowd shouting and screaming at the press. That's a whole different ball of wax.
All right, we got to move on. More from President Obama's final news conference when the Five returns, plus a live report from Houston where former President George H.W. Bush and his wife Barbara are in the hospital. An update on their condition ahead.
Also hospitalized as a precaution. More now from Fox's Casey Stiegel outside Houston Methodist Hospital with the latest. Casey?
Hey, Juan, good to see you. We've been told all morning long that doctors were, quote, very pleased about the progress that the former president was making since he was admitted here to the hospital over the weekend. In fact, there was some talk of a potential discharge, that could happen. But then this afternoon, things changed. A spokesperson for the president came out and said that Mr. Bush was moved to intensive care for treatment of a respiratory issue relating to pneumonia. Now, a spokesperson for the president says Mr. Bush was moved, and doctors say that the 92-year-old was sedated so that his airway could be cleared and secured. He's now said to be stable and resting comfortably, as is his wife, Barbara. The former First Lady was also admitted to the exact same hospital here in Houston this morning after she started experiencing fatigue and coughing. Staffers say this was done as a precaution, but earlier in his final press conference, President Obama shared these words about the former First family.
They have not only dedicated their lives to this country, they have been a constant source of friendship and support and good counsel for Michelle and me over the years. They are as fine a couple as we know, and so we want to send our prayers and our love to them. Really good people.
President Bush spent a week at Methodist Hospital, you remember, back in 2014 through the Christmas holiday when he was also treated for shortness of breath. Then the following year, the elder Bush was hospitalized in Maine after breaking a vertebra in his neck from falling at their Kennebunkport home. So for now, the president and Mrs. Bush, the former First Lady, resting comfortably here at Methodist Hospital back behind me. No word on when they could be discharged from the hospital. Guys.
Thank you so much, Casey. Back now to President Obama's final news conference today. Right off the bat, he was asked about his decision to commute the sentence of former Army Private Chelsea Manning. She leaked classified information to WikiLeaks. The president explained.
Let's be clear. Chelsea Manning has served a tough prison sentence. So the notion that the average person who was thinking about disclosing vital classified information would think that it goes unpunished, I don't think would get that impression from the sentence that Chelsea Manning has served. He had served a significant amount of time, that it made sense to commute and not pardon her sentence. And I feel very comfortable that justice has been served and that a message has still been sent.
Well, Eric, 7 years, but the president says it's time to have some
Yeah,
Clements.
I have no idea what's honest. This is insane. Justice has been served. Yeah. Bradley Manning, Chelsea Manning got 35 years for violating the Espionage Act, stealing government property, violation of computer fraud, multiple counts of disobeying orders, and leaking $750,000 documents to WikiLeaks, which put a lot of people, military members, at risk. That's very different from some of the other things that President Obama may be referring to, namely Snowden, possibly Assange, who knows who else, Bergdahl. This gal now, put a lot of Americans at risk. Maybe even people died because of some of the things that were leaked. At one point, we were going to go after Chelsea Manning or Bradley Manning for treason, capital crime.
Right.
In other words, open up
Absolutely.
to the death penalty.
Yeah.
And now President Obama commutes the sentence after, he says 7 years. It's 3 years since the conviction. So I think this is insane. I think you are absolutely telling people who may be thinking about it, yeah, hey, well, 7 years, I don't know. If you get 35 and no chance of parole, that's a different story than getting out in 7 years.
Well, but Greg, it's 10 times longer than the next harshest sentence, which was given to a former FBI agent for doing the same thing, 20 times as long as the most severe sentence ever given for any such action prior to the Obama administration.
Well, maybe this was a different action. I mean, if you're questioning the initial sentence, that's a different argument. But the fact is, he didn't serve the prison sentence. And why did he not serve the prison sentence? Because he is she is a folk hero. Understand, if anybody here at this table got into a serious legal trouble that involved jail time, we are never going to enjoy the same vast amount of sympathy that Chelsea Manning gets right now from the press and from the government, because she is an anti-war activist. She's a gender activist. You put those two together, you're a folk hero. We're never going to get that kind of mercy. The one thing is, with the exception of Eric, because he came out strongly, a lot of conservatives are going to have a hard time saying that. Because if you condemn Manning, how do you cheer Assange? And that's why you haven't been hearing from a lot of conservatives, because it's put him in a kind of a tight box.
Can I jump in here very quickly on the heels of that? So what are the Democrats doing now? Right now, they're berating Julian Assange and WikiLeaks, saying this guy needs to be brought to justice. And then President Obama commutes the sentence of someone who put Julian Assange on the map with WikiLeaks.
Right.
So what is President Obama telling the Democrats?
Well, wait a second. There's a big go ahead, but I'm just going to quickly say there's a big difference. This woman pleaded guilty. She went through the military criminal justice
So what?
system.
It's blatant
pleaded guilty
So
and
what?
is in jail.
No, I'm sorry, but when my brother is deployed and fighting ISIS, which, by the way, defense officials have said that her release of all these documents led to the rise of ISIS and the Arab Spring. So while she is making all of our diplomats, intelligence officials, and troops less safe overseas, that's okay because she's sorry. It is not good enough. Our president is sending a signal out to the rest of the world that leaks are appropriate as long as you said you're a folk hero and you're an anti-war activist and you're whatever else. And the hypocrisy of, I don't want to touch that because God knows what can happen. But honestly, the hypocrisy in all of it and what it is sending to our intelligence communities and the men and women who fight so hard for our national security is, as long as you're a traitor and you have the right kind of politics, it won't matter.
Well, in fact, Ash Carter, the defense secretary, opposed this movement.
Yeah. No, but it's blatant hypocrisy from the left, because they're the ones driving this anti-WikiLeaks, anti-Russian narrative. But alternatively, it's perfectly okay for this individual to put out 750,000 documents, details of American operations, identity of American allies. The New York Times even noted in an article that they wrote about this, the fact that foreign allies in various countries who were helping the United States, they had to remove them and put them into safety because this individual put them in harm's way. So it's not only blatant hypocrisy from the left and the President of the United States, President Obama, but it's also purely political, to Greg's earlier point.
And if it weren't political, General Petraeus would be getting a pardon right now, which, by the way, it is shameful that he is getting a pass for Chelsea Manning and not for General Petraeus, given what he did for this country and Chelsea Manning did in order to...
It's because of Greg's earlier point,
Assange said he would come back if this happens. So.
Maybe so, but I'm wondering, why not pardon the Unabomber or Eric Rudolph? You just let out a bomber and a traitor because you disagree with their politics. The Unabomber politics are not as romantic as the FALN, according to a leftist.
I hear you.
And Eric Rudolph is pro-life and a terrorist.
I think Chelsea Manning is found guilty, sentenced, and I think that she has...
I'm talking about FALN is, to me, worse.
Okay, all right. Another very busy day on Capitol Hill with confirmation hearings for 4 more of President-elect Trump's nominees. If you didn't have time to watch them all, we've got you covered. The highlights when the 5 returns.
Mr. Know-It-All.
More cabinet hearings on the Hill for President-elect Donald Trump's nominees. We've got highlights. First up, the man picked to oversee the dismantling of Obamacare, Georgia Congressman Tom Price, Dr. Tom Price. Senator Bernie Sanders tried his hardest to create some drama while questioning the HHS nominee.
Do you believe that health care is a right of all Americans, whether they're rich or they're poor?
Yes, we're a compassionate society.
No, we're not a compassionate society. In terms of our relationship to poor and working people, our record is worse than virtually any other country on earth. We have the highest rate of childhood poverty of any other major country on earth, and half of our senior older workers have nothing set aside for retirement. So I don't think compared to other countries we are particularly compassionate.
And Senator Elizabeth Warren also went after Price.
The stock was bought by a broker who was making those decisions. I wasn't making those decisions.
This is someone who buys and sells the stock you want them to buy and sell.
Not true.
So when you found out
That's not true, Senator. What I did was comply with the rules of the House in an ethical and legal and above-board manner and in a transparent way.
Did you take additional actions after that date to advance your plan to help the company that you now own stock in?
I'm offended by the insinuation, Senator.
All right, let's start with Greg. Can we do Bernie Sanders first?
Yeah.
He was making a couple of points, and it's right along the lines of his presidential run.
He hasn't changed. God love him. He should have been the nominee, and he's bitter. But this is another boring example of team sport politics. You know, instead of shirts and skins, it's Republicans and Democrats. Thank God it's not shirts and skins, because a lot of those people don't go to the gym. But yes, I don't know what side I'd want to see. But, you know, they're all going to go. It's like, you know what it is? It's a shooting gallery if you're a liberal, because you show up and take your shots. Yeah. And for a Republican, you're basically like at a baby nursery. You come over, you coo, you say hello, hi, and then that's it.
Yeah, and at one point, Elizabeth Warren complained, like she said, oh, I only got 7 minutes. My colleague got 2 extra minutes, and she went back and forth with Lamar Alexander and wasted another minute of additional time.
Awesome.
Right, you know, I love, by the way, shirts and skins, that was terrific.
It's a bad image.
That was terrific. But I must say, you know, we've seen people lose cabinet positions because of their babysitter. I remember Tom Daschle, right, Bill Richardson. There are a lot of Democrats who did get torpedoed. I don't know if Price gets torpedoed, but the fact is the investment was made one day. He introduces a bill the next day. He makes money the third day. That was, I don't know, if you were, you know, following the money, you'd be like, something's going on here.
Mm-hmm. And if you follow the money, there's a lot of that going on both sides of the aisle.
Well, absolutely. And look, the reason the Democratic Party is doing this is they don't have any other options. Their only option is to try to exploit these various issues in people's lives, like they're trying to do with his labor secretary choice as well, in the hopes that they'll push them out, because they don't have the numbers to stop any of the cabinet choices from President Trump. So this is literally all they're left with. And to the Democratic Party right now, these cabinet choices are the enemies, because you're talking about people that want to fundamentally change the agencies that they're going to take over. So they are enemy number one to the Democratic Party right now.
Meghan, your thoughts on Price's hearing today?
What I want is for Senator Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren to answer to someone from Arizona where the premiums went up over 150% and you could only have one health care provider in every single county in the entire state of Arizona except one. I want one of those people to ask him a question about what it's like to pay over 150% in premiums, because this delusion of this utopian socialist society that he espoused forever, that I had to sit here and cover holding my nose, it's over. Your dream is over. The American public universally rejected it, and they look so bitter and delusional, and I agree with you that I think at this point it's just grandstanding for the cameras.
Can I throw this real quickly, producers? I hope I can. Another soundbite exchange between Senator Sanders and Congressman Tom Price. This one on skyrocketing costs of prescription drugs.
We are paying by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. You don't disagree with that, do you?
I think that's the case. I'd have to look at the statistics. I think there are a lot of reasons for that, and if we get to the root cause of what that is, then I think we can actually solve it in a bipartisan way.
One of the root causes is that every other major country on earth negotiates drug prices with the pharmaceutical industry. In our country, the drug companies can raise their prices. Today, they could double their prices. There is no law to prevent them from doing that.
Now, this may surprise you. I agree with Bernie Sanders on this one. I think Medicare is not allowed to negotiate with Big Pharma over prices they want to charge, and I think this is a big mistake we're making here. Now, I know the reasons why they put that into the Medicare Part D years ago, but still, it's competition. Let's bring some competition, bring prices down, no?
Well, you know, you stun me because I agree with you. I don't understand it, but I think this has been overwhelming. Even the other day, Cory Booker, the senator from New Jersey, big Democrat, he voted against the bill that would allow drugs to be brought in from overseas because so many pharmaceutical companies located in New Jersey. And I think Republicans have always said, oh, yeah, you know, that America is a place of innovation and we pay a price. The rest of the world comes here for medical care. And they excuse the fact that for our seniors, drug prices are intolerably high.
You saying we should have drugs from other countries?
Good drugs.
Is that already happening?
Yes, it is.
But it's one of those quirky rules where they say Medicare, who can buy in mass, is not they have to pay what these pharmaceuticals demand.
Free market is always better than the hand of government. So wherever you introduce competition, prices go down. However, drugs are expensive for a reason.
Yeah.
Because some of them, there are patients, there are rare diseases, so the drug costs a lot of money because not a lot of people are buying it. But then the cheaper drugs help pay for that. You hope that happens.
So what happens? I know they want us to tease, but what happens is it's the same drug. It's a Canadian drug that does the same thing, and we're not allowed to buy it.
Yeah.
Look, this is one of the things I agree with the Democrats on. Sorry, guys, we got cut out of this. All right, more from today's confirmation hearings. These guys will get in a second later. And ahead, former President Bush, 41, can't attend Mr. Trump's inauguration on Friday. He wrote the president-elect a beautiful letter to explain why. We'll show that to you coming up.
Back now with more on today's confirmation hearings on the Hill. The president-elect nominated Oklahoma Attorney General Scott Pruitt to lead the EPA. Here's a little bit of what he faced from lawmakers today.
Donald Trump has called global warming a hoax caused by the Chinese. Do you agree that global warming is a hoax?
I do not, Senator.
So Donald Trump is wrong?
I do not believe that climate change is a hoax.
Okay, that's important for the president to hear.
South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley went on the offensive at her confirmation hearing earlier. She's in the running for ambassador to the United Nations.
Like most government agencies, the United Nations could benefit from a fresh set of eyes. I will take an outsider's look at the institution. Nowhere has the UN's failure been more consistent and more outrageous than its bias against our close ally, Israel. Russia is trying to show their muscle right now. It is what they do. We need to let them know we are not okay with what happened in Ukraine and Crimea and what is happening in Syria. But we're also going to tell them that we do need their help with ISIS and with some other threats that we all share.
All right, I'm going to start with you, Lisa. Do you think it is possible with this administration to mend all of the fences that have been just decimated with our closest ally in the Middle East, Israel?
I think it's going to be tough, but I think we need to see some leadership, and I really think that's, part of the reason why Donald Trump was elected, because Americans have felt that there is this vacuum in the country as far as our leadership on the world stage and being perceived as incredibly weak. In regards to these hearings, to the point earlier, we're talking about, we just saw two people who, are very critical of the organizations that they're going to be assuming or looking over. Nikki Haley was talking about the fact that other UN members are not paying their fair share, which is something that Donald Trump had been talking about as well. You look at Scott Pruitt, he wants to roll back this egregious overreach we've seen from the EPA, which is struck down or at least blocked by the Supreme Court with the Clean Power Plan. So I think this is a great thing that we have people that are questioning, the various organizations and places that they're going to have purview over, because I think it's desperately needed in the country right now.
What do you think of Nikki Haley as the UN ambassador, Juan?
I'm all for her. I thought what she said today was that U.S. leadership is necessary and needed. Now, she got into something that a little surprising, which was we make the United States 22% of the contribution to the United Nations. You said, are we getting what we pay for? I mean, the United Nations is here. I think we exercise some influence there, and was a good idea post-World War II. So I just hope that she doesn't think this is a financial transaction.
Yeah, some of her comments on Russia in regards to Ukraine and Syria is a little bit of a tone shift from President Trump and what he said on the campaign trail. Do you think they'll be able to meet in the middle?
So President Obama in the A block, I think we did play that in the soundbite saying the next administration shouldn't surround himself with sycophants. Remember? Mm-hmm. Look what you've got in these hearings. You've had from Pruitt today on climate change, Nikki Haley on Russia, Rex Tillerson the other day on Russia, harder line than Donald Trump has been, Jeff Sessions on waterboarding, General Mattis on waterboarding and involvement in other conflicts. you have people who are pushing back against some of the things that Donald Trump has said, and that is the strength, and to Donald Trump's credit, that he didn't surround himself with people who say the exact same thing he says. He's stacking his cabinet with people with diverse opinions, and that's what a good leader does. He hears what you have to say, his top people, and then make decisions from that.
Greg, do you think he's going to listen to them?
I hope so. I mean, I want to talk to, we didn't get to Betsy DeVos. I just find it interesting, you know, she's for school choice, and that upsets a lot of these people. And so there's a liberal rule that you're only for choice when it comes to terminating a life, but not educating one, which I think is interesting. And then if you look back at the people that are going after Price, because he's critical of the EPA, I find it strange how the left can herald like the most violent critics of government, people who go after the military or leak or try to bomb the military. But if you're a critic of government bureaucracy, somehow that's evil. If you don't like the EPA, that's somehow worse than a guy planting bombs at military dances.
Wow.
Thank you.
Hi-oh. Drop the mic on that one, Greg.
I banned that phrase.
You did?
Yes.
Well, I don't know. It'll certainly be interesting, but, I love that they're all sort of every Democrat's worst nightmare. And if we have to talk about climate change one more time.
They're adults. The children have left the room. They're in the basement eating ice cream. These are all the adults sitting around playing bridge.
Yeah.
Bunch of billionaires.
All right. In 2 days, President-elect Trump's going to deliver his highly anticipated inaugural address. Want to know the first thing he's going to say? He just revealed it to Fox News. Hear it next.
Well, we are 24 hours away from Inauguration Eve, and the Five is headed to Washington, D.C. You don't want to miss our live coverage from the National Mall tomorrow and Friday. But ahead of the big day, Fox and Friends co-host Ainsley Earhardt got an exclusive interview with the president-elect. She asked him what he's going to say in his inaugural address and also more.
What's the first line?
Well, I have prepared it. The first line is thanking everybody, all of the presidents, and including, by the way, President Obama and Michelle, who have been absolutely nice. I'm just thanking President Obama. I'm thanking his very lovely wife, because they have been so gracious.
What's the first thing you're going to do when you walk into the White House?
Well, I want to go to work. Monday is really the day that we start signing and working and making great deals for the country.
Your first night in the White House, will your whole family be there?
Yeah. My whole family is going to be in the White House. Barron and Melania and all of my children will be in the White House, which is sort of a tradition. They say the first night you have your family there.
Well, Eric, obviously Friday is a big moment for the president, President Trump, because he's really going to sort of set the precedent and the tone for his presidency. We know what he said. He's going to thank President Obama, Michelle Obama, but what else do you think we're going to hear from him?
So I think Sean Spicer said it's going to be around 20 minutes, which is fairly short and right to the point. And I also understand that he's only going to do a couple of the inaugural balls. Typically, the president will do a lot of them. The parade's going to be shorter. So I think he's going to keep a lower key, believe it or not, as big and out there as he was during the campaign. He's going to swear in with a lower footprint, I guess. I found it very interesting. Axios, Mike Allen's new newsletter, is fantastic. You got to pick it up if you haven't. We had an interview with President-elect Donald Trump. Make America Great Again started in 2012. When Romney lost, he said he was looking for the right brand for a presidential run. It started with Make America Great, and he felt that was demeaning to America, so he added the again, and he branded. He bought that for $300 in 2012. I mean, the guy is, look, he was meant to be sitting right there in 48 hours with his right hand up.
And I find that interesting, and I want to talk about that as well. And so, Juan, considering the fact that he trademarked this in 2012, obviously there was a lot of foresight there in, sort of potentially wanting to run for president one day. Just to what degree has he been underestimated, considering the fact that obviously this was something that he was looking towards back in 2012?
I don't think there's any question he's been underestimated. He's been underestimated by Republicans, by Democrats. I think there's a certain genius to him. I don't always think that it's doing good. Sometimes I think it gets the better of him as it gets out of control and he starts tweeting in the middle of the night. But the fact is, this is a very, brilliant guy who found something in the American public mind that was compelling that other people did not see. So you got to take your head off to him.
How much do you think
your Make America Great Again hat.
Well, how much do you think that branding is going to help him in moving some of his policy initiatives forward, Meghan?
I mean, I think branding's everything, but in regards to the inauguration, I have a little bit of a confession to make to you, Lisa. It's not that I don't care what Donald Trump is going to say, but I want a camera on Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton and Chelsea Clinton the entire time, and I want to sit back and watch the reaction on their faces.
There'll be tears for you to drink. Greg?
Well, the question about Hillary is, will she wear the outfit that she had picked for the inauguration when she assumed she was going to be president? Because that's going to be sad wearing that. But you know what? That answer, what's the first thing you would do in the White House when you move in is a great question. I would have the greatest game of hide and seek you could ever imagine. I would play it all night, and I would raid the liquor cabinet. So I would have the wildest first night in the White House.
Maybe that's why you're not going to be president.
Not yet, anyway. But there's still time. I'm only in my early 30s.
Are you eyeing 2020?
2024.
You and Kanye, or he's 2024 now.
2024,
right?
Blue pantsuit, you think?
I think it'll be a tasteful pantsuit.
Yeah.
On Obama?
No, those will be mom jeans.
All right. Well, on this very important note, we're going to have to move on. One more thing is coming up next.
One more thing.
Well, President-elect Donald Trump doesn't move into the White House until Friday, but a replica has already moved into the Oval Office at Madame Tussauds in London. While this only required the moving of one wax figure, transitioning the White House, in reality, boy, that's tough. About 100 White House staffers have only 5 hours between Obama's departure and Trump's arrival. In that time, so much has to be done, even like changing the toothpaste to stocking the first family's private pantry. And, of course, a crew from the National Archives will go through a sweep and pick up remaining documents from the old administration. It's exhausting just to read about it.
You know what they're going to find? They're going to find packs of cigarettes hidden all over the White House. They're going to be where I used to hide them. They'll be in planters. They'll be outside. They'll be outside. Exactly.
Smell them.
And it'll always have to be, you put them out and then you bury them in the ground.
God.
Remember where you buried
Sounds delightful.
Where I'm at. It is.
It's like a squirrel, right? They can't remember where they bury stuff. Okay, so I think it was Washington Times put this piece out today. Fantastic. President Obama and the family, and Michelle, they're going to leave the White House worth $24 million, which that in itself is amazing considering the salary has been $400,000 a year over 8 years, and they're taxed on it. But check out what's next. They predict this. $200,000 speeches, I think that number is going to be low. $30 million in memoirs and books. $205,000 salaries going forward. Their estimate, I'm not sure if it was Washington Times or another outside group, $242 million in the next 10 or 15 years.
I think that's low.
Oh, I think it's going to be way low.
Low.
That's going to have an extra.
It's $2.42 billion.
I agree with
Yeah, billion.
How's this? It's good to be president.
Yeah.
No, but it's also good to be a best-selling author. He made a lot of that money off the book.
Yeah.
That
It was worth it, right?
probably would be.
It probably sold that many.
Yeah, and of course he wrote it, right?
He did right.
I'm kidding. Of course he wrote it. I'm joking. All right, it's my turn. Hey. Greg's Robot News. This is some chilling news out of Europe. The European Parliament has voted to give artificial intelligence and robots, get this, electronic personhood. That means robots in time will have rights. They will actually have rights. So if you have your futuristic toaster and he burns your bagel and you smack it, that toaster can sue you or have you charged, have you arrested. Your appliances now will own you. That's why be nice to your refrigerator now because they'll have a memory. Well, they'll have a memory put in it. See, I told you this was going to happen. I've been telling everybody.
I actually think you're going to be right now.
I'm scared. I'm scared.
We're that crazy to allow this stuff to happen.
Yep, it's going to happen. Meghan?
Okay, my one more thing. Obviously, everyone here at Fox News wishes George H.W. Bush and Barbara Bush a healthy and speedy recovery, but George H.W. Bush cannot attend the inauguration, and he penned a letter to Trump on missing. He said, Barbara and I are so sorry we can't be there for your inauguration on January 20th. My doctor says if I sit outside in January, it's likely it will put me 6 feet under. Same for Barbara, so I guess we're stuck in Texas. And he goes on. I always love that George H.W. Bush has such a great sense of humor. He's always gracious, and I just thought it was funny.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump has thanked him for it on Twitter.
Oh, let's hope
for that letter.
Gets better. All right, Lisa.
Well, mine is this so-called women's march that is going to be on Saturday because it's just a complete farce. I mean, it's just the divisive politics from the left under the guise of inclusiveness. But my biggest bone to pick is with the media who's fawning over it, like ABC, Good Morning America today, fawning over this march without any mention of the fact that pro-life groups are being excluded. And it also just cuts to the heart of a disingenuous narrative from the media about the issue of pro-life and abortion. The country is completely split on the issue. If you also look at the so-called heartbeat bill that was being led as controversial by the media, Ohioans were split on that issue as well. So I'm just really fed up with this, and I'm done with it.
Wait a second. I don't think pro-life people are being excluded. They were not welcome in terms of the leadership.
They were originally going, and then they were being excluded.
With their name on the leadership. But I think there are a lot of pro-life women
How is that
who are
not
joining
divisive?
the march.
That's not all-inclusive. That's not representative of all women.
All right,
by any means.
we got to roll. That's it for us today. But we will see you live from Washington, D.C. on Inauguration Eve. You might hear about that. It's coming up. Special Reports is up next. Love that show.